Welcome back. You're watching the Budget Makers here from the CNBC-TV18 headquarters. Joining me now is the Chief Economic Advisor and the Revenue Secretary. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here. I know it's been a long last couple of days, so let me start by asking you, Revenue Secretary. I think the big announcement that got everyone a little bit by surprise. I think people were expecting, with all the warnings from the SEBI chief, the RBI governor, and Mr. Nageswaran, that something's coming on F&O. What people were not expecting was the changes as far as capital gains is concerned and short-term capital gains, as well as the indexation benefits that have been done away with. You're saying that you don't see these as big changes, you see these as marginal changes, as rationalization, and you believe that that's what the market has now digested as well.
Exactly. So you have said it all. There has been long, commentary, demand that we should be simplifying capital gains, especially and generally, our tax laws. And the FM, in her speech, did make a mention of that. It's actually a continuing agenda for us, to simplify our tax laws, to simplify our tax rates. You've seen that. You have seen this, over and over and over again, starting with, GST. The customs rates, number of custom rates, were brought down. And now, you see it in capital gains, you see it in the regime for charities, you see it, in tedious rate structure, that we have tried to simplify. So this is more, a simplification as everyone really wanted. This actually makes it easier for everyone, to pay their taxes. It improves compliances. And at the same time, it also, because litigation reduces, demand actually embroiled in disputes reduces. So you get real revenues of the day rather than, demands stuck up, in courts.
Not the interim budget, but the last budget. And again, there was expectation and anticipation that the government would move towards rationalization, simplification as far as the long-term capital gains regime was concerned. That was not to be, because when we spoke then, you said that there was no, there was discussion, but there was no consensus on the approach to take or the rates or the tenure to settle at. So what changed this time around? How did you arrive at consensus, or did you decide to go ahead anyway, irrespective of consensus being evolved?
No, obviously there has to be consensus, within the government, and the finance minister, under the leadership of the prime minister and the cabinet, they take these decisions. Obviously there was consensus in this. Things can take time. But the direction, has always been to simplify things. They can take time, they may happen yesterday. The timing is also, important. And so
the timing question, were you emboldened by the fact that we've seen this record rally as far as the Indian stock markets are concerned? Did that embolden you to take this decision at this point?
Yes, that certainly, weighed in. Obviously, if the markets would not have been doing as well, then that would have weighed in and may have deterred us. But the markets are doing phenomenally well, and so this is really a very, very small hike.
So you don't believe this is going to spoil the party, so to speak?
No, not really.
No.
No. Because this is, markets have been growing at a phenomenal rate, more than 10% per year over the last 5-7 years. So if it is 10%, then what this does is take away, 2.5%, which means 9.75%. So it really does not impact, the markets. And that is what, the markets had to say today if we go by the
reaction and the recovery that we saw. Well, one of the things that this, please
Shereen,
go ahead.
Before you ask me a question, I want to comment on what Sanjay said on this question. I think to say that increase in the short-term capital gains tax and the long-term capital gains tax, etc., will be bad for the market is somewhat myopic. But if you look at how this market has rallied so much in the last so many years, it started with the corporate tax cut in 2019, and more importantly, as we have been repeatedly saying, it is the pursuit of sensible fiscal and monetary policies over the last several years that created macroeconomic stability in which the corporate sector could thrive and rebuild balance sheets, government recapitalized banks, and to recapitalize banks, you need money as well in the fiscal. So I think the capital market investors also need to take a holistic view. This kind of careful, calibrated, and prudent approach to fiscal policy in general is what has paved the conditions for the market to have this kind of a rally. And it is all part of that policy mix that within which you must view these capital gains tax rationalization.
No, fair point that you make, CA. But, you know, I think something that one was expecting on the back of what we heard, as I pointed out, from the SEBI chief, the RBI governor, and then yesterday, you in the economic survey, was some action as far as the F&O market was concerned. How worried are you on this kind of speculation that you believe we are seeing on the F&O side? And do you believe that, you know, with this STT hike, that's enough, or do you believe more needs to be done?
No, two questions here. One is, how worried are you? It is not that one needs to be worried so much to take an action. If you're really worried too much, probably it's already too late. And it's important to take some of these actions before they become systemic concerns. And yesterday, I categorically mentioned that we don't see it as a systemic risk at all. But it's important that we don't let it become a systemic risk. So in that sense, it's an important preemptive action. Now, whether a short-term transaction tax alone would deter speculation in the market, we don't think so. But it does send an important signal that we do view this as an act that is detrimental to the interest of the investor himself or herself. That is the key message. And that is what SEBI's working paper has been saying. 9 out of 10 trades lose money. And there are much better ways of augmenting your savings and retirement income through more direct investment into stock markets rather than through speculation.
Yeah, and I think, you know, Mr. Somanathan, who was here earlier, also said that perhaps the next set of measures, if at all, will be taken by the regulators when we talk about this. But let's understand some of the other decisions that were taken. There were many corrections on the customs duty front that the government made, correcting the inversions and so on and so forth. Do you believe that on the GST now, and I think that's the next set of reforms that one is waiting for. There's not a matter that the budget could take forward. It is a matter of the GST Council. Are we ready to set the ball rolling on rate rationalization? Are we even considering the possibility of reducing the slabs as far as the GST rates are concerned?
You know, as mentioned, this budget talks about simplification on all the three taxes. Income tax code, you know, that, you know, we are talking about comprehensively reviewing it within this 6-month period. Similarly, the number of custom duty rates, they were reduced last year. Again, you know, there is a mention to do it, you know, again within 6 months. Further, you know, reduce and rationalize the number of tax rates to reduce classification disputes, etc., make it simpler. And similarly, there was a categoric statement of the Honorable Finance Minister in the budget speech with regard to the GST. GST, you are aware, it is not, you know, something which is only in the domain of the central government.
It can't be unilaterally done by the central government.
It can't be done unilaterally, but a statement has been made categorically stating that we would like to rationalize those rates and reduce, you know, the number of slabs that are there, and at the same time...
The GOM is looking at that aspect as and when the GM looks at it, but is the fitment committee now ready with ideas, suggestions, a roadmap on what potentially we could be talking about?
Now that the speech, now you know that the Finance Minister has announced it, obviously, you know, it will be our endeavor to look into all these things and try to arrive at a consensus, because these decisions are not taken only, you know, by the fitment committee. There's the fitment committee, there is the GOM, and ultimately, you know, there is the council. So obviously work will be done insofar as the central government is concerned to try and bring about a reduction in a rationalization, you know, in these rate structures of GST, and even reduce, you know, the number of
3? Are we talking about 3 as a possibility?
See, the point is that we need to understand that, I mean, someone may say, you know, that we need to have only one. Some countries may have, you know, only one rate.
Which we understand is not practical.
But we understand,
here.
You know, that is not something, you know, which is going to be possible, or 1 or 2 rates, you know. I mean, that may be, you know, ideal. But is this society actually, you know, ready for it?
Fair point.
Because we also need to keep in mind that there are people in you know, the lower sections of society where, you know, we would like to give relief to them. And so that's why we would like to have it progressive. And to have progressivity in it, we need to have lower rates for those items which are actually consumed, you know, by the common and the lower income classes, and higher rates for those who are in the higher income groups. So we cannot, you know, so it has to be in a phased manner. It has to be over a period of time. Yes, certainly we need to reduce the number of rates. Today there are 5. We need to go, you know, step by step.
Step by step and calibrated fashion. But one quick clarification before I talk to the CA about 2 of the specific announcements that came in on employment skills as well as MSMEs. On the STT, the rate change is effective October.
That's true. Because we need to give time to those, who collect the tax, the exchanges, to make changes, in their systems. So that's why, this time has been given.
Okay, so
whereas, capital gains, etc., those are on an yearly basis. They are not, collected while the taxes actually, while, the gains accrue. They are actually paid, later. So that's why, they have been made effective immediately.
Okay, so October as far as SCT is concerned, and that is on account of the exchanges having to transition.
Yes.
Let's talk about the big announcements that came in on jobs and skilling. This is kind of the thrust of the economic survey as well, that the private sector needs to step up, work with the government, that tripartite compact that you spoke of. How confident do you feel that these schemes are, A, going to take off in the near term, B, that they will be able to achieve the objectives that they set up?
Of course, whenever we make policies, we always start with the confidence that they will have the expected impact. And if you look at the policy, the suite of 3 policies focused on employment cover all possible options, multiple sectors, multiple timelines, first-timers, additional job creation, contribution for 4 years in one case, another case 1 month of salary for the paid in 3 installments, etc. So I think there is a suite of offering here, and together collectively we believe that they will make a significant dent, because they also come as a package along with the skilling and the internship initiatives, etc. So I think this is a very serious statement on the part of the government in terms of addressing this. And we also mentioned, for example, yesterday in the survey, that we expect the new jobs that need to be created in a year is around 8 million.
Yes.
And if the kind of numbers that we talk about in these 3 schemes, about 400 million and so on, then we are talking about providing the runway for almost 5 years of job creation here. So we are very confident that the intent and the statement and the money that the government is willing to put on the table, and also doing it in collaboration with the private sector, I think give this a very high probability of success.
So it works out to about 10,000 crores from the Labour Ministry and about 5,000 crores.
That is the allocation for this year. That's
this year, that's right. For this year, I was talking about specifically, and about 2,000 crores from the Corporate Affairs Ministry is my understanding.
That's for the internship program.
That's correct. On the MSME, because I know that that's something that you worked on, and the survey spoke about that as well. How soon do you believe that this is going to be operationalized? But more importantly, what are the checks and balances that you believe will need to be put in place that it doesn't become a problem for the banks?
No, I think first of all, this is a self-financing program, if you're referring to the credit guarantee program. And the proposal came from the MSMEs themselves. They're willing to pay a one-time guarantee fee at the beginning, and also an annual guarantee fee on the declining balances. Yes, it is a pooling of credit risk. And we are confident that since the economic growth rate in general is going to be upwards of 6.5% to 7%, I think the necessity of having to invoke this guarantee for multiple borrowers is not going to arise. So I think we are quite confident that in terms of boosting the share of manufacturing and making credit available for purchase of capital equipment, which is what converts the small into medium and medium into large.
Correct.
I think that this incentivizes the banks to do so, and up to 100 crores is a very significant sum.
Yes, and we did speak with the SBI chief about this as well. But I want to talk about the PLI schemes in particular. And of course, we've already seen 13 of them being rolled out. But the expectation was that there might be more PLI schemes for some labor-intensive sectors, specifically toys, apparel, and so on and so forth. Is there any consideration to extend the PLI scheme beyond the current sectors?
I don't think, I mean, that's not my subject, first of all. But I don't think there are any new ones, immediately in the pipeline. Had they been there, they would have been announced in the budget. Having said that, let me just point out to a related aspect, and that is about the PMP. Is the phased manufacturing program which we had initiated for the mobile phones. And you are aware, that we have seen a 3-fold increase in the manufacturing over there. The duties had actually been increased. It's not a PLI, it's a support, through the customs duties. And here a significant statement has been made by the Honorable Finance Minister by reducing rates, rates which have actually gone up, reduce them so as to assure everyone that these hikes in rates are not, in perpetuity. They will be sunset so that the benefits, so that the domestic industry actually becomes competitive, and it's not on crutches in perpetuity.
Let me get both of you to comment, and let me start by asking you about the rationale behind the changes that have been made for moving people or incentivizing more people to move to the new tax regime, and the changes that were announced in this budget, which will result in a saving of about 17,500 rupees, is what the finance minister mentioned. Could more have been done? Why the changes that you did decide to go in for? Would the revenue implications have been significantly higher had you put more on the table?
Obviously, if you give more benefits, the revenue implications will be more. And as mentioned, we had, made these changes only in the last year. And there the benefit given was about 37,500 at the most, for those having incomes more than 15 lakh. A benefit of 37,500 crore was 37,500 per person was given over there. On top of that, this is another 17,500. And the results have been good, encouraging. 68%, FM mentioned in her speech, have already shifted to the new tax regime. And with this change, we further expect more to change. As mentioned, we will be comprehensively now reviewing, the act, and we'll be closely looking at, what are the exemptions, deductions available in the old tax regime, and what can be, done to simplify those regimes.
The conscious effort and attempt has been to move away from exemptions, and that has been the stated objective and the intent of the government. So is that going to continue to be the thrust of this simplification and rationalization exercise?
You're absolutely right.
How much of it will be simplification? How much of it is likely to be rationalization as well?
No, see, here it is more of incentivizing people to move towards the new tax regime. So nothing has been taken away from old tax regime. Whatever exemptions, deductions, benefits are available, were available, continue to be available. So the effort always has been to make the new tax regime more and more attractive, so that people on their own, they have both choices, both for old tax regime and new tax regime. And FM is on record to say that we don't plan to sunset or close this old tax regime. We don't have any date in mind. Of course, we would like everyone to shift to the new tax regime.
But the old stays as well. On balance, this is one of the announcements that came in from a consumption stimulus perspective. The expectation is that this will move the needle. Outside of that, in the near term, of the many budget announcements, where do you believe we are going to see impact being visible and tangible immediately?
No, and in terms of the consumption aspect, the entire set of announcements regarding employment creation will be a boost to consumption growth, because the moment you generate jobs, you generate income, generate spending power, and therefore the boost to consumption is not necessarily only through taxation measures, but through the spending program on employment, and that will be a very direct contributor to consumption growth.
Well, gentlemen, it's a pleasure speaking with you today. We look forward to speaking with you again at the CNBC-TV18 budget verdict. Appreciate you joining us. We're going to give you a little bit of a reprieve before you continue the conversations. But many, many thanks for joining us here at the CNBC-TV18 budget headquarters. We are going to take a break, but there's a lot more coming up. Don't go anywhere. The budget is being decoded. The fine print is being explained. The rationale behind the many decisions taken being shared with us here by the budget makers themselves. A quick break. We're back with more. Don't go anywhere.